Hi, I'm Os here with my report on the 2018 Spring Fuji Avic Headphone Festival, which was held on 5 floors of Nakano Sun Plaza in Tokyo. There was a lot to cover, and to get started, Stax released their SR009S, and this is the first time I saw their display with only T8000s, all the other amps, nothing else there, because I guess a lot of people want to compare the old and the new models, and they had both side by side on all 3 amps. And the new Stax SR009S, they've improved the diaphragm, the overall design of the SR009, and the sound was quite a bit tighter, quite a bit more dynamic. Actually, it was much like the Audio-Technica ADX5000, very highly detailed, very upfront, and the old SR009 sounded quite a bit more relaxed than the new model. So this will be quite an interesting pair of headphones. Hopefully we'll get those in for review at some point. They also have their very funky looking portable there. The actual the kind of IEMs, as you might call them, have been around quite a while. They're open backed and not very isolating, but the amp is new. Now I didn't get around to checking that out. But a pleasant surprise at this show was to see Tim de Paravicini, who is a legendary amplifier and audio designer in the 2-channel world. He was at the show to promote his new headphones. They're designed in collaboration with another company, I believe possibly Rogers, from whom we've seen similar headphones before. They are a planar magnetic headphone with removable wood cups, so they can be turned from open back to closed back. And they had a number of different coloured cups on display. Now I tried them out of the Hugo 2 and out of the E.A.R HP4. Now the HP4 has been a high-end headphone amp that's been around quite a long time, and there was a significant difference. It was amazing how spacious and wonderful they sounded out of the HP4. If you're not familiar with this amplifier, it's probably been around maybe even as long as HeadFi has. And every time I listen with it, it's an amazing sounding amp, whether you've got a digital source or the vinyl source that was on display. Also at the show was Anthony Meze, as well as the president of Rinaro, with whom he made the Empyrean headphones. Now I always thought after the Meze 99 Classics were released, I thought, well now, what if he took a stab at making some more high-end headphones? And he seems to have gone all the way with the Empyreans. These are a planar magnetic pair of headphones which have a unique driver with separate traces for the high frequencies and separate traces for the low frequencies. And the sound, while probably a bit mellow, was very lovely and clean sounding pair of high-end headphones, and they're absolutely gorgeous to look at. So I also ran into another headfire while listening with these headphones and while checking them out. They were powered, as you can see. That wasn't my Hugo 2, that was actually theirs. Now they're going to be provided with these felt pads, but I believe they're going to also have leather pads as amps. Also, they were powering them out of some Relief amps. Now the Relief amps I'll discuss later in the video, really fascinating high-end headphone amps which are handmade. They also had this lovely Relief showing that was made from the block that they used to carve out the headphones themselves. Now I don't know where to begin with this group of guys. This group of hardcore geeks go by the name Music with, well, I suppose in Japanese translated it says music with outside specifications, and I probably describe it as music with design out of the ordinary. And they have the most amazing collection of vintage headphones, vintage Walkmans, and other stuff that you can possibly imagine. I should have tried some of it actually. I think next time I'll have to bring a CD and try some of the old Walkmans with some headphones. Just where can you begin with this stuff? If you've been around a while, you've probably been around long enough in the whole deal, you probably recognize some things from way back. If not, this is what old audio used to look like. And there's a DAT recorder, player, I'm not sure. Digital audio tapes were supposed to replace cassettes, and they worked in recording, and they didn't appear much in the consumer area. Now they do a lot of crazy DIY stuff. Now your good old Altoids tin amps. Well, they put amps into absolutely anything they can lay their hands on. And there are some old cassettes and some old recordable cassettes. They even do their own 3D printed headphones, for which they have some really crazy designs out there and some really basic, cheap. They were doing 3D printed headphone kits, which they may be still doing, I'm not sure. But as you can see, yeah, they've got the little city of capacitors in some of them. So you see the good old Willy Wonka truck amp. I think it had it was a biscuit tin of some description. This stuff, yeah, where do we even begin? And these are 3D printed headphones, which they seem to have put super tweeters in now. So anyway, this thing, no, I should have actually plugged in an amp or something and had a listen to, I don't know what the heck that is. Maybe it's a DAC amp, who knows, but they always have, there's just so much on this table. It's so dense with crazy DIY projects and what have you. Now Octave from Germany, the dealer had the V16 single-ended amp. I think it goes for around 8 grand in Japan, but what a beast of an amp. And I plugged this in with the Hi-Fi Man Susvaras. Really great sounding amp, really great combination. I had the Hugo 2 there as well. As soon as I put it down there, the guy started putting vibration dampers under it, so you can see that there. This was a really, well, if you've got deep enough pockets, a really nice amp for pairing the Susvaras with, as well as other headphones. Next up, Oriolus, which has a very interesting player there in the making, which has both DAC and amp modules. We'll listen to the background where they discuss it.
So you keep it separate, isolated as well. Okay, that's good. That's good.
This player they have in the works has modules which both have a DAC and amp, and all of them are interchangeable.
As well. Okay. Yes, 901.
Okay, 90. Okay.
Yes.
So the saber.
We can change the
I see.
module
Okay.
for listening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. So now you because last time this one seems, now you made it into okay. Because that's what you had back in back in February.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also had an amp there which has a 4.4mm input and output. It's a portable tube amp.
So that's a tube amp.
Yes, vacuum tube.
Okay.
We also listened to their IEMs, and they have a very nice one called the Reborn. And the Reborn consists of a dynamic driver and 3 balanced armature drivers. And this was one of the nicest sounding IEMs I've listened to. Really clean treble, really clean sound, really fantastic. There it is in my hand. And they also have some other IEMs there with a variety of designs, not just balanced armature or not just dynamic, but quite a variety. I hope to be checking those out in the future. Digi Fi is a really fascinating magazine. Their monthly magazine contains a box, usually with some kind of kit and instructions how it works. They consist of digital to analog converters, headphone amps, little tri-path speaker amps, other stuff, and they have these little boxes you can get, which you can assemble them all together, and the modules all clip together in some way so they can be turned into like mini systems. Really fascinating stuff. And they have this, you can see on the right, this headphone output module which has every possible output and then 4 pins which connects to the headphone amp. So really great if you want to learn about audio, as they explain it all in the magazine. And you can build a mini audio system that you can create from the complete components. Mass-KOBO, which usually manufactures equipment for pro audio customers, had on display their new model 406 amp with a pair of Hi-Fi Man Susvaras, which it was powering very adequately. The new amp retails for somewhere around $16,000, which may seem too rich for your blood, but there are other amps such as the little Model 404, which is battery powered, does a very nice job with Sennheiser's HD800s. Ken Ball and crew from Campfire Audio and ALO Audio were at the show, demonstrating the new Comet and Atlas IEMs. Now the Atlas are the successor to the Vegas and have a single large dynamic driver inside. They were by far the best IEMs I heard at the entire show, and actually while I was in Tokyo. And you can see there CT in the background having a listen while Anak-chan is talking to Ken. I'll have the Atlas in for a review, so in a short while I'll have a review up of those. So do keep an eye out for that. They do have, from what I've heard so far, a very similar sound signature to the Vegas, but with better treble and better detailing. A very interesting surprise when I headed over to the Time Lord room. Time Lord are the distributors for Chord and Ultrasone. Was this Pathos amp. Now just check out the heat sinks on this amp. That is very impressive. It must be very expensive. I have no idea what the price is, but I didn't have a chance to listen to it, as I didn't want to really listen to it through Ultrasones. I wanted something more familiar. But all the same, quite an impressive looking amp, and definitely a heck of a visual statement if anything. They also had the Blue Mark II and the Chord Dave in there, and I ended up sneaking over a pair of Audio-Technica 80X5000s for a listen, and brought over the guys from Audio-Technica as well, and we had a great time listening to some binaural, which was absolutely fantastic through that system. They also had the Chord Q-Test on display, and it was much smaller than it looks. This Pathos amp isn't very large. We can see from the RCA plugs that the Q-Test is quite tiny. Now, the Pathos amp is something I've been meaning to check out for a while now, so down the track I may have to do so. Audio-Technica had their new DSR 7BT and 5BT Bluetooth IEMs on display. These IEMs unfortunately are non-detachable from the neck piece, but what they do is they use the new system for Audio-Technica's high-end Bluetooth, and that's converting the incoming signal to DSD and then outputting it directly to the drivers, bypassing the need for any kind of DAC. While it wasn't the smoothest sounding in the treble as you can get from IEMs these days around the same price range, it was still good sounding all the same. Now here's an engineer from Audio-Technica reacting to binaural tracks from David Chesky through the ADX 5000 headphones. These are a true high-end flagship from Audio-Technica, grain-free, harshness-free, very detailed. Imagine a pair of truly high-end AD2000s. Really amazing to see Audio-Technica come out finally with a pair of truly high-end headphones. It was interesting to see Uncle Wilson from Jaben Network, who you can see in the background. He had brought a pair of AKG K1000s with him, which he was powering out of a pair of these neat little Sherlock tube amps. They can be used as single amps or in dual mono mode. He's also had some Fat Lab amps on display, and it was always good to hear the AKG K1000s once again. They always can be, when you power them up, even with a good little simple set of amps, they can sound fantastic. Relief, the makers of one of the most expensive headphone amps in the world, had on display their new entry-level current mode amp. This can be used as a in a dual mono setup or as individual amps, and they can have not only current mode but dual voltage modes. And here it is, Relief's $50,000 US DAC amp. Now for the cost of 2 Chord Blue Dave systems, you can have this completely hand-built DAC amp with no branding, no nothing. I guess it's more of a lifestyle device than anything, given that they make a stand where you can add this to it and plug it into an iPad. All the same, I didn't get round to having a listen, but maybe down the track I will, just to see what $50,000 worth of audio sounds like. While Dectoni were at the show with their earpads, I also found another maker making aftermarket earpads, mainly for Fostex and Sony, but they're also making a HD800 model. Yaxi have a variety of aftermarket earpads, and I tried the HD800s with their aftermarket model. These were very pleasant, giving a very smooth highs, even with the stock cable, something which really bugs me normally about the HD800. And the bass was nice and extended, so I should be checking these out in the future. Korg had on display their single-ended triode equivalent NuTube, which is low power enough that you can just make a portable amp which is battery powered to use it, which they had a number of demo versions on display. They also had this full-sized amp and this signal processor or analog filter using a whole bunch of NuTubes. This is pretty cool. Now I didn't listen to anything today on their table, but if you weren't already aware, I've already reviewed the Apex Sungaku, which uses the Korg NuTube. Z Audio was started by the ex-marketing manager from Lotoo. He has a pair of very interesting amps, battery powered. One is single-ended, one is balanced, and they are so dead silent I could plug Andromedas in and get zero hiss whatsoever. He also has an R2R ladder DAC, which you can see, and for those in the know, yes, that's right, that is a Socris board in there. Now I had to listen to the whole system, and it was very nice sounding with a pair of HD800s. And he also has a higher powered amp which is available with and without an external power supply. I hope to be checking out one or another of those products in the future, as they sounded very good indeed. The IFI guys were at the show, and while they didn't have anything on display that was new officially, except the Pro DSD, which will be coming out soon and I hope to be checking out, Thorsten was holding an interesting device that looks like an XDSD, but the ports are different. Indeed, it's the new xCAN, which will be in the new part of their new X series. It has double the power output of the XDSD and is a portable amplifier. But it also includes Bluetooth input, which is kind of unique, as well as balanced input, so it can be used with a DAP that has balanced output. I hope to be checking that out soon once they've got the firmware sorted, so keep an eye out for that. I was sure to check out Shure's new KSE1200 system. It was the first time I got to hear the system with a high-end source, in this case the Hugo 2 again. And suffice to say, even though it is a little bit different from the KSE1500, the IEMs are identical, the amp system is identical, And the sound is identical as well, with a very clean, very clear sound and minus 35 dBs of isolation, making it even usable on an airplane. Now, while the bass is somewhat rolled off, it was absolutely fantastic with acoustic music and instruments. So if you're looking for a high-end pair of, say, custom IMs, which can even cost the same or more than the $2,000 that this system costs, if you want your bass thump, you may have to go for the customs, but if you like your acoustic music clean and clear, well then these did an absolutely stellar job. Every show you get some weird and wonderful people coming and they bring their own portable systems, and this one just takes the cake for the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I won't even attempt to explain it, I'll let him do it.
And this is also Kappa shield and special polycarbonate and Kappa shield and Fox. So, like this. And a lot of Kaiser, Rosencrantz, Kaiser's tips, sound tube.
Oh, and the case, this is aluminium. Yeah, no, what's that?
This is double red 0.3
What
kappa.
are these stickers?
This one, this is a whole type of Rosencrantz.
You can prove the sound?
Yeah, this is the rose vibration.
This is a famous guy who does like damping stuff, like with perfume.
Yeah. Rudy-san, by the Indonesia, and try to expand. This is interesting.
Great. So this used for protecting for the interference, for shielding.
Maybe.
This is my first chance to try ZMF's headphones. Now, this was really interesting. They, to me, were kind of somewhat mellow sounding with varying degrees of rolled off bass, but their newest model, the Atticus, was very nice sounding indeed with nicely extended bass and extended treble. So down the track I may have to check these headphones out. They were certainly very good sounding, and it was good to see them coming to Japan. Now, Asahi Kasei are probably most well known for their digital to analog chips, but there's also an Asahi Kasei which make materials for audio. And you can see a number of materials there, but what they had on display this time was a cable, an elastic cable. That is, the wire wrapped very tightly around an elastic cord, making the whole cable stretchable. Now, while this is kind of mainly for mainstream headphones like the ones you see on display there, they did say they might be offering high quality wire in single rolls for like the small makers who like to make headphone cables and what have you, even though they normally make batches in numerous rolls for manufacturers that sell mainstream headphones by the thousand. I also checked out Lotoo's Pure Gold Touch by request. This is an Android-based version of their Pure Gold, which has been a very well-received player. It's very chunky and it takes a full-sized SD card rather than a micro SD card. And it also has USB 3 input. Now, I couldn't use the exFAT card that I use in my AK380 with this, but I did get to check out some very nice jazz on it, and through my Andromedas, they were very nice, very smooth sounding. Maybe down the track I'll have to check one of these out because it's a very nice DAP indeed, and some people give it a run against the Hugo too. Now the room you see here, as well as Noble and Fio, it also had tables from a distributor named Emily. Now they are a company that is run by a nice friend of mine who distributes brands such as Questal, Mytek, which you can see there. There's a presentation going on in the background with about the new Mytek Manhattan DAC, Sonoma, and other high-end brands. Now, I come in there to specifically check out the MrSpeakers Voce Electrostatic headphones. But I also noticed they were distributing, head amp products as well. Now, the Voce, of course, are Dan Clark's effort at making a high-end pair of electrostats. I've heard the Sonoma system before. That was really good, except you can't use analog inputs. It's digital input only. Analog input is, of course, converted to digital so that their DSP for tuning the headphones can be used. I might have to review that in the future. And it was good to see things like the GSX Mark II and some of the new products here on display and on for sale. Now, the Voce, they were They were still very clean, very clear sounding. I don't know if I'm a big fan of this Bricasti DAC though. It was maybe too smooth, but the Voce were kind of sounding, this pair that I had to listen to were kind of, maybe the sound stage seemed very much more narrow, very much more closed in, more like kind of somewhere along the Focal Utopia lines, which was kind of very odd. I had a memory of them sounding more spacious than that before, but maybe I'll just have to check them out in the future and find out what's going on. Still very clean and very clear sounding, so those I hope to check out in the future. KuraDa are one of the most unusual Japanese manufacturers I've ever encountered. They had a number of wood finish headphones often on display, which weren't on display this time. Instead, this very stunning super open back model, which has garnered a lot of attention, was on display. Now I finally had a chance to listen to them, as they'd normally been in a room next to a manufacturer of small desktop speakers, so making them impossible to listen clearly with. This time I had a listen, and while very open sounding, I wasn't hearing a lot of detail out of those drivers, which was something of a shame. I wanted to check out Fostex's T60RPs, which are wood-cupped versions of their T50s. Now these are kind of entry-level planers, and they also have a matching DAC amp system. So if you're looking for an entry-level planar system which is very good with acoustic music, these do a really nice job, even if the highs aren't as clean as you get with higher-end headphones. Brise Audio, who are cable manufacturers, had the most insanely expensive system on display. I gather it costs over $100,000. They have a custom-made amp and this whole system, including with the Isotech power. Using Sony's MDR Z1Rs and the Focal Utopias, this was the smoothest ultra detail system I have ever heard. The Z1Rs and the Utopias sound nothing like they normally do. Really fantastic system. And so that's it, and I'm going to leave you with the view from the airplane as I flew back, and you can see Shinjuku in the top left hand corner, and you'll be able to see Tokyo Bay coming into view in just a second. I also got to fly over Mount Fuji, which was pretty cool. So once again, thanks to all my patrons for sponsoring me. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee once in a while, you can help me make these videos. It goes a long way to me being able to do this and do good reviews, and in the future show reports and interviews. If $1 or $2 a month isn't your thing, do also consider buying your headphones through the links in the sidebar on my site. They send me a couple of dollars every time a pair of headphones is bought, and that helps me make reviews as well. And once again, thank you for watching.